All right, welcome back to the show. It is April 28th here in the great state of Iowa. I'm Nathan Creeps, joined by my co host, Mr. Bryce Bortscheller. Bryce, it's not just April 28th, but some are referring to as the apocalypse day here
Mm,
in the state. Are you
mhm.
out nader hunting today? Are you hunking down, or what's your move?
I'll be out. I'll be out there. I have a haircut actually scheduled. I tried to get a fresh cut before the pod and it didn't work out, which is unfortunate, but we'll survive. I am going to go out into what might be the first tornado widespread across the whole state, which is really exciting for some of us and very scary for others. I know Dusty Nickel up in your neck of the woods is really nervous because she's got the cats and she's got to put them in the kennel. And Scotty B is in Miami, so she's a little nervous. But for somebody like me, I'm kind of excited about it.
Yeah,
What about you? Are you going to be out there?
oh yeah, I'll be out there. I'm really excited about this one because Southwest Iowa has been Tornado Alley here the last
Mm-hmm.
2 years, I feel like. So we get a flip in the side of the state heading up here to Northeast Iowa, where potentially we get some action here. But we're going to dissect the storm a little bit later here in the show. But extremely excited for it. There's no doubt about it. I How was the weekend?
It was good. It was meant to be really chill, but when the first rays of sunshine in a 60-degree day beckon, then you find yourself on a patio. And we found ourselves on the either or patio just off of Valley Junction, off of Grand and 63rd Street in Des Moines. So we had a little bit of that, a little bit of golf, and preparing for Darian's 27th birthday coming up tomorrow. So we had not a whole lot planned, and then it ended up being really busy. What'd you guys do?
Pretty chill, yeah, over here too. But like you said, as soon as that nice weather kind of peeks its way through for the first time, the neighborhood just came absolute alive. I've never seen anything like it. There's lawns being mowed that didn't need to be mowed. People just want to be in their lawn more. I was
Right.
one of them. We decided to have a little taco grill out party at my house and brought over some friends here in the local area. And we had a fire. We put the fireplace in the driveway. We had some day beers. I got my brother this new putter ball game
I saw
for his
that.
birthday last week, and we were able to break it open for the first time. And I don't know, have you ever seen this game before or know anything about it?
Yes. Yes, I
It
do.
is. It's so putter ball game is like you. Everyone has those. Every golfer has that little putty mat, with that one
Mm-hmm.
little hole, and it goes slightly uphill to get into that
Mm-hmm.
hole. It's just like that, but a little more advanced. And it's based. It's a spin off of beer pong, but golf edition, right? And instead of 10 cups, on each side of the mat, there is six. So there's six total cups you got to hit. It goes three, two, one. And after you're opposite side of the mats, you're putting towards it, you hit the hole, you plug the hole with a little circle thing that fills the gap of the hole.
Mm-hmm.
That's one cup knocked out. So extremely fun. We're going to be using this for tailgating season. And man, we really did have some great tailgate vibes this weekend.
Yeah, you even posted it on your story that um, the putter ball kind of got you in the mood for tailgating, and we're not that far off. We're just creeping into May, but it will be tailgate season before we know it. I looked like a lot of fun. I would love to play that game. I think it's going to be a hit at the tailgate. So you did a little bit of that, a little bit of you had neighbors over, friends over. What was the taco party?
Well, my in our neighborhood, it's like what's mine is yours.
Mm-hmm.
So my good neighbor Caesar's just walking back and forth. Him and I were both trying to knock out some landscaping projects. I have zero experience in any landscaping, but my brother and I took on the task of digging out some old grass on my southwest side of my house that doesn't get very or gets very little sun. This didn't stand a
Right.
chance, never fully grew through with the sod, so we had to completely rip that space out and go buy some dirt at Fleet Farm, some new seed, and kind of replant it a little bit. It's probably not going to do too well because, like I said, it's on the southwest side of the house. But we're just kind of messing around, trying to have fun with it and do a little project. While Caesar, who's just a professional landscaper, is looking at us like, "You guys are freaking jokes." And he's just doing this landscape brick around his tree. And then after that, also he moves to the backyard. Now he's reconstructing his garden down there because he's planting corn this year. Remind
Oh
people
wow.
we live in a residential area, and this guy's planting corn here in Iowa, and that's why I love it. He's got watermelon. He's doing all sorts of shit. And actually, I'm pinned by both my neighbors. My other neighbor Dan, he's planting corn too. So I almost feel like I
And
need to
here,
get some corn stock going.
yeah, and here you are now with a lot of pressure to start your own garden. I think that what you need to do is not put too much pressure on yourself. Being, you know, pretty new in your home ownership career, and landscaping is something that I think you strengthen that muscle over lots of years of home ownership. So I don't want you to put too much pressure on yourself, but you sounds like you have the pressure on with a couple gardens right next door and some expert landscapers.
It's hard not to put pressure on yourself, right? I mean, if you mess up, it really sticks out like a sore thumb. So I'm not trying to do any too crazy projects. We do want to add to our back door patio down behind the house, but I made sure Caesar would get his hands dirty on that project with me. So I ain't doing that without you.
Mm-hmm.
He said, no problem. Just let me know. We'll spike up some ideas. So yeah, that being said, that this conversation tells you right where the weather is going. And typically with this warm
Yep.
front, you're going to get some storms. But let's jump into on the state segment here in Iowa. We're looking at April 28th, Bryce, and we're going to be, before we get to the weather here, April 28th here in Iowa, 1953, Canyon Kids Corner, Bryce, was a popular Sioux City-based children's television program that went on air, hosted by Jim Henry, who worked on the show for 32 years. The show taught kids how to live right through principles like respecting one's parents and kindness to friends. I grew up on Sesame Street. The Sioux City kids must have grew up on this.
Yeah, so I lived up in Northwest Iowa for 5 years, and it would have been the time kind of when I was watching this kind of thing. Maybe I was too old for it, but I actually don't remember this, and maybe it was just before my time. But
Well, it looks like it would have
seems like,
span off in 1985. I've never heard anything about it,
oh, okay, okay, that would
but
make a lot of sense because
for our
I
older
wasn't born yet.
audience, I wonder if they knew anything about Canyon Kids Corner because I knew the guy who was hosting the show, Jim Henry, was a World War II vet. So once he came
Okay,
back, moved to
yeah.
Sioux City, and decided to make kids' lives better. So that's why the older generation is so nice and shaped here
Mm-hmm.
in the state of Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we love our people because of Canyon Kids Corner. Bryce, weather records for April 28th. It's going to be another potential record for today when maybe because of precipitation, damaging storms. We don't know, but we're going to dive into Iowa City's weather records here. They're looking at a high of 80 degrees for today, and it's just going to be 9 degrees short of a record high that was set back in 1970. A record low was set in 1928 of 27 degrees, and a most precipitation occurred in 1959 at 2.05 inches.
Can you imagine having a 27-degree day today?
No,
Be
God.
miserable.
Hey, like I said, I want to know what the wind records are each day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it says it anywhere. Because, like I said, we're talking last podcast how this is the windiest the Midwest has been in 50 years, half a century.
Yep. Yep, we officially
And
broke a record, which they have. They obviously have a metric to measure this, but I don't ever see it when you look up like records and
I
stuff.
want to know that. But obviously, it's going to be a windy day. I think like 30 to 35 gusts throughout the day because it's bringing all that warm air, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and all that warm air found on a cold day. That's when you usually get shit wrapping up in the atmosphere and get some uh, spiral winds coming down with little naders and things like that. I'm no meteorologist, but anytime you get that warm weather in after a cold day, some nasty things are going to happen. Bryce, we're looking at Iowa news here today, and this is the coolest story I think I've seen all year in the state of Iowa. 2 months after having his left leg amputated in a snowmobile accident, Carter Henning is the number one golfer for the Calamus-Wheatland varsity team. Carter Henning, you are my Iowan of the week.
Iowan of the week, Iowan of the year. That's insane. Leg amputated in a snowmobile accident. So obviously a huge injury. Leg is amputated. What year is he? Do you know how old
Freshman.
he is?
Yeah, he's a
Okay.
freshman. Even more
Man,
miraculous.
that's insane. What a story. So he's obviously probably just getting started. We've got spring sports going on pretty strong right now in Iowa. Do you know how he's been doing so far this year?
No, I don't have any scores update. I just know he's number one on his team. But obviously, College Moon is probably a little bit smaller school. I don't care. You have one leg, and
And
you're
you're
the
still
number one
playing.
golfer on your team. That's incredible. I have four limbs, four very active limbs that find a way to shove the ball or slice the ball 100 yards to the right every time. And this guy's doing out here with one leg as a freshman.
Mm-hmm. Anything is possible. Shout out to Carter. Definitely gets Iowa of the week, and he might even get Iowa of 2025 person of athlete of the year. We might have to do an official ranking of athletes of the year at some point, but Carter is already an early front runner for this.
Yeah, he said he's just playing. He's obviously he knew his sports career was probably going to be a little bit derailed from this accident. Once he got the news, hey, this will have to amputate it. I mean, yeah, this crazy was only 2 months ago too, but he said he's just going to slowly try to get back to normal life. He was riding the golf cart one day with his friends, just watching him play, and then he's like, you know what? I'm going to go out and just try to hit a ball. He hit it, and he's like, man, that felt really good. Each day, put in an extra hole, then another hole, then finally got the doctor's full approval. Like, hey, you're good to go, baby. Now
Wow.
here he is 2 months later,
Wow.
number one golfer on the team.
Do you know if he has a prosthetic?
Yeah, well, the videos I saw of him, he just so it's his lower left leg amputated, right? So it goes down
Okay.
to about the kneecap, it looks like, or maybe it was cut slightly above the kneecap. Uh, he was just golfing. He was using the golf club as one of his little stint legs, right? Using a support for his other leg and just walking around and hopping. But he talked
Wow.
about in his interview about once he heard more information about the prosthetic legs, how he felt a lot more comfortable moving forward with his life, and
Sure.
that's awesome to today's technology. That it just makes you feel that much better about it. But no, from the videos I saw, he's just golfing one leg.
That's so cool. Modern medicine is amazing, dude. It's I don't know what would have been possible even 50 years ago with this kind of thing, but it's so cool that he's out there playing. Um, Obviously, your life changes after something like that, and the fact that he's still playing with his team, let alone number one golfer on the team, that's really cool.
Well, the big news today outside of our Iowa of the week is obviously the weather coming in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Major weather.
What's going up? What's going up on in Cedar Falls right now? Because right now we just have like 30 to 40 mile an hour gusts and
Yeah,
nothing crazy. I don't, I've been seeing all these maps. A lot of storm chasers are getting pretty excited, but as of right now, I don't see anything on the hourly forecast or the radar that's suggesting any major tornadoes as of yet. So I don't. Do you have any idea when this might be happening?
they always push storms back, right? If they tell you 3 o'clock, it's probably going to be 5:30, 6ish like that. I really haven't seen a definitive timeline for when it's going to hit Western Iowa and work its way through central up to northeastern Iowa. Here in Cedar Falls, we did have a quick little storm front move through us. Obviously, it missed me, of course, right? Went just north, and Denver, Iowa got the severe thunderstorm warning. So I already know that's what's going to happen to me this evening too. But I think at least for our area, it's looking around like 6, 7ish.
Okay.
And like I said, you just never know when these things. Majority, they're saying a lot of the state isn't going to get these storms, but if you do happen to get these storms, the likelihood of these being incredibly severe is a very high chance, right? They're talking majority of these storms taking place north of Highway 20. Looking at the heaviest impact for strong tornadoes, some areas may even see baseball size hail and up to 60, 70 mile per hour wind gust.
So by the time this podcast comes out, we might have major hail, tornadoes. You guys will obviously know by then. But Nate, I think in a previous life you would have been a storm chaser, and I'm actually not ruling it out as a career opportunity for you in the future because you have been following storms in Iowa for as long as I can remember, and it's honestly one of the core tenets of what built Iowa Chill is your love and fandom for storms. So this is a huge day for you. I think it's a huge day for a lot of Iowans because we really haven't had a lot of major storms yet. But here we are. It's time. End of April, May. You get a lot of fluctuation in temperature, all the different kind of winds blowing in different storm systems and different pressure systems. So for anyone that loves storms, this is the time. And we've got a kind of a fun ranking at the end of the show. I've got some weather related things in my top 5 historical Iowa moments.
What I want to know, right? Let's give a bold prediction here. Is this storm going to be overhyped?
Yes. I think
Yeah.
this is I think we've been dry. I think there hasn't been a lot of activity right now. I think that meteorologists are getting a little bit ahead of themselves. Like I said, you guys will know by the time this comes out. We're just kind of looking out the window, live reacting to what's going on, and probably getting a little overhyped ourselves. But in my opinion, I think we're gonna maybe get just kind of a normal thunderstorm here.
Well, they're saying the areas in the northeastern Iowa in the red zone with the moderate risk of these storms are seeing a chance of 20 to 30% chance of tornadoes. And there's not just saying just tornadoes, but strong tornadoes that will develop in these areas. I'm going to go ahead and say overhyped too, just because from personal experience, I never see anything. Storms just do not hit me. It does not matter. I'm the dome. Storms never hit me. So I call every storm overhyped. And I know some people out there going to be frustrated. Like, what? I live in Southwest Iowa. I saw
Mm-hmm.
the largest, strongest tornado of all time rip through Greenfield, cause tremendous amount of damage. And I understand that. I really do. I just never see anything. I don't know any
Mm-hmm.
better. But you got to go from the meteorologist standpoint. Obviously, they're going to overhype every single storm. You want to be better
Mm-hmm.
prepared for your audience in your listening area rather than underprepared. So that's why these things are always overhyped. But all it takes is one of these potential 15, 20 tornadoes that might pop out, one to cause a tremendous amount of damage to make the storm, worth its talk.
100%. 100%. And like you said, you always would rather be more prepared than underprepared. I don't think a lot of people have even heard you talk about the dome effect on the podcast. And that's something that people might be hearing more and more about as we get into the heat of tornado season. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you have some records of when your dome has been in effect. And when we clip some of these moments, just so people don't doubt you, I think that you should include some of those screenshots.
I have screenshots dating back to 2014, ever since the
Mm-hmm.
dome. I first discovered the dome. And, I moved to Cedar Falls. And so some people said that Cedar Falls itself was a dome in the Waterloo area. They call it Cedar
Mm-hmm.
Valley, how they call it the bubble here.
Mm-hmm.
So, which I'm not doubting there's a bubble, but now you're taking the dome and the bubble and you're mixing them together. Now we have a super dome. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just incredible, man. When I go down to work in Cedar Rapids, I'll look up Waterloo's getting lightning knocking on electricity. I heard last week from Colby. But if I come back, Cedar Rapids gets drilled. I was just on the outskirts of the derecho. It never ceases to exist. I mean, I have documentation just from today alone how a storm literally just opened up and then it goes past me and then it closes up and then moves east forward. And I got in a fight with my cousin last a whole year. But he's,
Mm-hmm.
I'm the dome. After this last year of me constantly drilling him with evidence of storm splitting me and missing me, he's like, I'm sorry, I was wrong. It's not even close. You are the dome. But Rice, I've had a lack of storms in my life. Have you had any close experiences of any tornadoes, any storms, crazy thing like that yet?
There was one tornado over Lake Red Rock that I can remember. I think it was like 2011, and that's the closest I've ever been to one. I didn't see it touch down, but it was starting to funnel probably 10 miles away. So that's the closest I've ever been to one. I've actually never been in a town that's been hit by a tornado,
So you've
that I
actually
can
seen a
remember.
funnel?
I've actually seen a funnel,
Did
which
you
was really
at
cool.
did you at that time know it was a funnel or it turned into a
Oh,
tornado
yeah.
later? You did. So you're like that shit's
Yep.
rotating.
Yep. We had a little part of the basement we would go to during storms, but prior to, anything being basically on top of us, we would watch the storm roll in. Feel like it's a really typical Iowa thing to do. So I did see the beginnings of a funnel. As soon as that thing started, we went downstairs. So that's probably the closest I've ever been. I don't remember seeing a ton of hail. But yeah, I don't think I've ever been in a town that's been hit by a tornado, like officially like touchdown and like done damage.
Where were you during the derecho?
Cedar Falls. We were actually just about to move to Des Moines. It was August of 2020, and we moved in October. So Cedar Falls again was not hit by the derecho. Kind of did that line across Highway 30 from east to west or west to east, and we did not get hit. So Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, all the places that I have lived or live now got hit, but I was not part of that damage.
Yeah, I forgot you. So you were my roommate at that time. I was at work, and I remember
Mm-hmm.
stepping outside. It was just super dark, but nothing ever happened, right? And all
Mm-hmm.
of a sudden, you see all these messages. My mom, my sister, and at that time, 4 kids were traveling from Laguna to Des Moines, and they're in the Ames area. All of a sudden, they just get drilled by the storm. They pull into a country home lot, and with
Mm-hmm.
a couple other cars there, and the tree in front of them collapsed in front of them. So you imagine this with 4 kids, they're just freaking shit. Like, what in the world? There's no. That's what the thing about the derecho. There was just no warning to what the hell
Right.
was going to
Then all of a
happen.
sudden, it was just on top of you.
And I remember the next day going down to West Branch to help clean up some houses. And this is when you got to about the center point area, it looked like a freaking apocalypse. Like a tornado smashed all these
Mm-hmm.
semis flipped over, tree limbs gone. So I never experienced it, but the closest I've ever experienced a tornado was maybe back in 2000, I think 7ish. I was with my cousin Michael. We were with my mom in my grandma's basement and underneath the staircase, and the greenest sky I've ever seen. It was just an eerie
Yes.
feeling.
Yep.
super green. Never, nothing ever happened, of course. But I just remember my grandma like, it's time for me to go. Like we were scared shitless, and she's like, nah, I don't care. But nope. Maybe today I might see something. Hopefully, if it does, it's just out in the cornfield. You know, how we don't need
Hmm.
any buildings being taken out. It's just out in the cornfield doing its singing, looking pretty. So we'll
Yeah,
keep.
that's the tough thing about tornadoes. It's like you want to see them and you want to like admire the magnitude of like their destructive nature, but you don't want damage to be done. And that's the
Uh,
fine line we got to play in content and everything too. It's like you want to celebrate the big storm because it is kind of cool, but at the same time, you don't want people's like lives to be uprooted. Yeah, derecho was crazy. I know that we're not going to hover too much more on this topic, but my grandparents had entire like tree limbs through their garage, like massive damage, and I remember the insurance claims took years to get covered. So, um, yeah, that's again never experienced that either. So I'm kind of thankful. But um, one time in my life, I'd like to witness like the magnitude of a major storm.
I just want to see it, man. That's all I'm
Hmm.
asking. God, even like if it's an EF1, you know, Iowa just broke its record a couple weeks ago. Now Southwest town. I'm not sure. Maybe start with a K, but it was the largest EF1 tornado ever recorded in America at what
Hmm.
1.8 miles wide. It's the
Hmm.
largest in Iowa ever recorded. So I'm telling you, Southwest Iowa really has been tornado alley
It's the
the
hotbed.
last 2
Hmm.
years. Them and right there in the Omaha border. But it's time for Northeast Iowa to see some action today. So we'll keep an eye on the storm as it progresses. Before we jump into our top 5 segment today, which is Bryce, one of the most ones I've been excited about, we're gonna be ranking our top 5 most historical events to take place in Iowa. Let's cover the draft.
Hmm. Yes, big NFL draft this past weekend.
As a Vikings fan, are you pumped up about some of your gets?
Yeah, we didn't have a ton of draft picks this year, and that speaks to some moves we made in prior years because we had a solid infrastructure and we needed to get guys that were ready to play that year. And we've had some good playoff runs, not a ton of playoff wins, but a lot of playoff appearances. And yeah, as a result, we didn't have a ton of picks this year, but we did pick up a guard, picked up a receiver, so now we might have the most stacked receiving core in the entire NFL. So overall, really great, but lots of Iowa and lots of Iowa State representation in this year's draft. On top of all the Shedeur Sanders
That was
dialogue,
hilarious.
which was hilarious. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I was hoping my Denver Broncos would land Caleb Johnson. I'm sad that
Mm-hmm.
didn't break through, but the main point here for the state of Iowa was the Houston Cyclones or the Iowa
Yeah.
State Texans, right? Because Houston drafts both Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins. They joined former ISU receiver Xavier Hutchinson there in Houston, along with this year's Iowa draftee Luke Lachey.
Mm-hmm.
So an Iowa receiving core down there in the oil capital.
What a great landing spot too. I know CJ Stroud had a little bit of a down year, but you've got maybe a top 10 quarterback throwing to some Iowa and Iowa State guys. That's going to be a ton of fun. What's your take on this? Is the Iowa State duo going to hold up in the NFL?
I think so. I really do.
I think
Xavier
so too.
Hutchinson was a very underrated receiver here for the past 3 or 4 years, absolutely destroying what do you call it, that league. I forget.
I think it's the UFL he was playing in.
The UFL.
Well, maybe that's Hakeem Butler was maybe in the
Both of
UFL.
them, he was an underrated receiver too, right? I mean, Iowa
Yep.
State is notorious for these receivers, and Alan Lazard was super underrated, and then he goes to Green
Mm-hmm.
Bay, makes his way right there with Aaron Rodgers. So I never underestimate any Iowa State receivers. They torch Iowa every year. They're one of the best defenses. I'm sick of seeing it. And sure enough, it's going to happen here, I think, in Houston Texans with an arm like CJ Stroud and the offensive style they play. And I love it. I think it's a great fit. Obviously, sticking with your teammate, you got chemistry already. That gives you a little bit more confidence to see more playing time. Just a good 1-2 punch because Higgins has the length. Jalen Noel could be that slot receiver finding the gaps. Lucas Shea. Let's see. I don't know how much playing time he's going to get. I don't know what tight end they have there, Texans, but I love it.
Uh, they have Dalton Schultz who has really emerged as a solid target for Stroud. But
Schultz is there. Okay.
hmm I imagine Lachey will be a good number 2 target. And these days, there's so many different formations that you'll have 4 wide receiver sets, you'll have 2 tight end sets. So I imagine these guys will get tons of playing time. And if there's one thing that we've seen from Iowa tight ends, Iowa State receivers, they are sure-handed and they end up being kind of a safety net for these quarterbacks. But we kind of posted about it this weekend. Not that these guys were ever going to be number 1 or second round draft picks, but I do think that some of these guys are going to be absolute steals of the draft. I really think these are going to be productive players, and it's always fun to see these alumni play in the NFL.
I was hoping Caleb Johnson would go a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I wanted him to go to Denver, but Caleb Johnson sticks with the black and gold, along with his teammate Yaya Black, and heading to the
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh Steelers Nation. Do you like this fit?
Love it. Steeler Nation is known for defense and for the running game, and they've won Super Bowls on that formula. So I love given a kind of undecided quarterback role. I mean, Pittsburgh ever since Big Ben has not had a ton of consistency at the quarterback play. So you're going to need a couple running backs in the backfield to show up for that offense. So I love it. I think that he's going to get maybe 10, 12 carries a game. These days, you don't burn your running back with 30 carries a game. So I think he's going to get tons of playing time and have an instant impact.
I think he's going to look sweet in that
Mm-hmm.
Steelers uniform, Caleb Johnson. So, but obviously the story of the draft is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Shadir Sanders getting prank
Mm-hmm.
call. Give me your thoughts on
Yeah.
this.
So there's a lot to unpack with Shadeur, and I think Iowa State fans will know better than anybody that he might have been, him and Travis Hunter might have been the most overrated duo. And it's just the dialogue around that Colorado program. Deion Sanders is one of the best in the business about getting buzz around a team.
Entertainment.
Obviously, he brought a lot of flair to that Colorado Buffs team, and whether you liked it or not, they were in the spotlight. And the fact that Shadeur and Hunter are now in the Hall of Fame, retired jersey numbers, is kind of crazy. I think a lot of Iowa State
Travis
sites
Hunter? You don't respect Travis Hunter?
We'll see. We'll see. I mean, there's so much to unpack here. Like, I think
You're just
both of these
you just
guys.
think the Colorado program is overhyped, so anything kind of with it is a little
Yeah, they didn't
traumatized.
win anything.
Yeah,
Do I think he deserved the Heisman? I do. The fact that you can play both ways and be productive and ranked in the top of the nation at both positions is insane.
yeah.
It's so impressive. That being said, it didn't translate to any college football playoff wins. I don't even think they won their bowl game. I may be incorrect on that, but they have a total record of like a 65 or 70% winning percentage, like super overhyped. Then you get into like all the pre-draft analysis. Shadeur doesn't do the combine. He doesn't interview well, and pretty soon his draft stock leading up to draft week on Thursday was not looking very good. So the fact that he falls is like maybe not that surprising to a lot of people.
Yeah, with the Colorado program, people were excited, especially Colorado fans, because they had a terrible season the years prior before Deion Sanders gets there. But that doesn't really matter as much nowadays because of the transfer portal and how easy it is to rebuild a team in just 1 year span, right? When you're taking over a program like a decade ago, it would take 2, 3, 4 years to get the new recruits in and slowly build this program up. People are expecting 1 year switches nowadays, right? You saw Signetti from James Madison bring over his Division II players to Indiana and lead them to the college football playoff in the first year. That's unbelievable, right? And then Colorado wins 6, 7 games. And
Right.
all second, yeah. So I get where you're coming. I do respect Travis Hunter. I think he carries himself well, and that's where the Sanders problem came. He's full of himself. Deion's kid, obviously, they're loud. It's what the personality is. Maybe they do it for entertainment purposes, and it works. We're talking about him, but that freaking prank call was hilarious.
Yeah.
The Atlantic Falcons defensive coordinator's son stole his number off his iPad at home,
Oh my God.
and if I had
I did wonder how that came about. I'm like, how did they even get his number?
If I had Sanders' number when I was 21 years old, you bet your ass he was getting a call from me on draft day. There's no doubt about it. I don't care.
Yeah. I mean, great prank. I do feel bad for him, and I have no problem with being confident, saying a lot. If you back up the play, there's no doubt he was a good quarterback. Is he going to translate to the NFL? Is his stature ready for the NFL? I don't know. I have no idea. But I just think it's all those like having bad interviews, not doing the combine. It's like, well, what did you expect? Like teams are looking for a professional here. So like if you do all this like extra stuff and you're cocky and you're doing like it just starts to shed a bad light. No doubt that prank call was hilarious. Definitely one of the best draft moments in
And
history.
then the funniest part to cap it off is that he ends up in Cleveland.
Which makes me think that his career is over before it even
Uh
started.
huh.
That seems like where quarterbacks go to die.
I don't know what that number is, how many quarterbacks they've had in the last 10 years, but it's been a plethora of absolute disasters. So it was only fitting that the Cleveland Browns would take the chance. Like, yeah, oh yeah, we'll do it. So
There's that Browns fan, and we might be able to pull up a picture and link it into the YouTube here. But I think he has a jacket or a jersey with all the different names of the quarterbacks
yes,
they've had since like
yes, I've seen that
2000.
guy.
Yeah,
Uh
it
huh.
just no success. I mean, Baker Mayfield was kind of a bust until maybe his resurgence with the Bucks. But I mean, he might be the best quarterback that they've had in 25 years. I can't. I'm trying to think of who might have been the most successful, but
Joe
just
Flacco made a
horrible.
quick little storm there. No, yeah,
He did
yeah, last
a little
year,
bit, little
comeback
splash.
player of the year, I think he was. But
Hmm.
that's not good when you're digging out Joe Flacco's 20th season, wherever how many freaking years he's been in the NFL
Hmm.
as the highlight for the Browns. So, oh shit, that's always good. You're gonna have to wait a little bit longer. He told the
Yeah,
guy.
yeah.
And then the worst part is the own production team posted it. What kind of production team
Hmm.
does that to you, man? Posted it.
Yeah, yeah. You got to have a little bit better PR team, I think, if you're
Uh
going to be
huh.
saying all this, these wild accusations about this and that, and how where you should go in the draft and how good you're going to be. You might want a little bit better PR team. Probably a lot of fun for Iowa State fans, and I don't know. I made a kind of a bold prediction. I'm willing to say it on the pod. You know, I if Rocco Beck keeps playing like this, why wouldn't he be a third round draft pick? Would it be crazy if he ends up going a little bit higher than Shadeur? I know he's got
Yeah,
a couple of years
it
of
all
college
depends.
left, but
All depends on the system and everything, kind of where you go and how you fit and potential they see. And yeah, Rocco Beck can definitely be a prospect here in the upcoming draft for next year's draft. But Bryce, let's cap off this episode with one of the most anticipated on my end segments, top 5 segments that we have done on the
yes.
show. We're going to be ranking our top 5 most historical events that have taken place in the state of Iowa. And give me your reasoning and logic for how you went about ranking your list.
This was a little tough list for me. I got there, but it was kind of it was a mixture of both historical events and individuals, and also just kind of moments in time. So it's a little bit of a mix. Kind of went through the archives of some content, some Iowa history blogs, and just pieced some things together. I think I ended up with a decent list, but I guess we'll see. You guys can let us know how we did.
Yeah, my list you'll see some weather related topics. Most of it's bad, negative stuff that's taken place, but unfortunately, that's what sticks out. And when it comes to historical records and events,
Hmm.
and you'll see a quick little bright spot. But before we jump into the top 5, a quick honorable mention to the derecho and the Iowa Greenfield tornado.
Mm.
Classic derecho that's been all the buzz talk for the last since 5 years, and then the Greenfield tornado that took place last year with the strongest wind speeds almost recorded in any tornado in U.S. history.
Hmm. Yep, they deserve it. Derecho is wild, and it's actually kind of wild. I don't think it made either of our list if it's on your honorable mention,
Nope.
but there's a couple bigger weather events that I think deserve to be a little higher. Are you going to kick us off for me?
I'll start us off, Bryce, with my number 5. The first Des Moines Register annual bike ride across the state of Iowa, RAGBRAI. That started in 1973. That has become one of the largest biking events in the world. And that is the only positive thing about my list. But I haven't necessarily participated in RAGBRAI from a biker's perspective, but I've been to multiple towns that have hosted it. It's always an awesome buzz feeling. It's a party for a week that extends from the Missouri River back tire to the front tire, dipping into the Mississippi River. I think it's
Hmm.
one of the coolest events in the world. So I'm glad that the state of Iowa hosts that. And like I said, Unfold the Buzz of this year's best route, in my opinion.
Yes, I think it deserves to be on there. It did not make my list, but it would definitely fall in that honorable mention category. If you have an event that is one of the biggest in the world that deserves to be recognized, and I think that's a valiant number 5. I'm actually just going to go with Iowa becoming a state. I think this is a worthwhile number 5 because it's where it all started. Um, I'd like to start off with saying shout out to the Louisiana Purchase.
Yep.
1803, the U.S. acquires 850,000 square miles of land from France for $15 million. That land, I think, is valued at many, many billions, maybe even trillions now.
What a
Might have
deal.
been the deal of all time. Whoever, I forget what president was operating at the time, but what a business guy.
Yeah.
Snatching that up from France. And obviously, Iowa's lumped into some of those square miles. So 1846, Iowa becomes a state, and I think it deserves to be on the list because here we are. Thank you for incorporating.
So you dug into a little deeper history right there. I thought
Mm-hmm.
about throwing the Lewis and Clark expedition that routed through the state of Iowa. Two
Oh, yeah.
classic dudes, right? Just hiking, doing their thing back in the day and just exploring the world. But okay, so trying to understand where your list is going. Hit us back with your
Yep.
number 4.
Number 4, and it's been mentioned on the pod before, but I'm going to go with the first Field of Dreams game played by the New York Yankees and Chicago White Sox in 2021. What was that? August 12th of 2021. We brought a real baseball game to the state of Iowa. I know that you haven't seen Field of Dreams yet, Nate, and I'm begging you to do so. I just watched it again with Darian, and
Really?
it brought a tear to my eye. The amount of Iowa nostalgia and mixed in with baseball, which is just a core tenet of everything that America's about, really, really makes you proud of this state. And it was pretty cool to see an actual game be played in 2021 here.
Yeah, I despise baseball, hence why I haven't seen the Field of Dreams,
Mm-hmm.
but I remember how big of a deal the Field of Dreams game was. And that's all I cared about all week leading up to that event. And I was, my God, do I dare go to Dyersville? But I watched every single second of that baseball game. And that
Yep.
says a lot because, like I said, I despise baseball. But what's even more fitting for that historical event is how it ended, right? The walk-off
Mm-hmm.
homer for the Chicago White Sox to take down the
Yep.
Yankees. Just a
Couldn't have
beautiful.
been a prettier night. Everyone that
Uh-huh.
the national
Kevin
broadcast couldn't stop
Costner.
talking. Yeah, you got Cosner showing up, and the broadcast just couldn't stop talking about how beautiful these Iowa sunsets are, and it's natural. I mean, it's everything that it could have been good about bringing that game here. So that did make my list just for. I'm getting chills right now. You got to watch the game. I'm not a baseball guy either, but it makes you love Iowa.
Yeah, good diversity so far in your list, Bryce. I like where your list is heading. My number 4 is the 2008 Iowa floods, mainly the
Mm.
Cedar Rapids area, with an estimated cost of $6 billion. The Cedar River crested nearly 20 feet above stage, Bryce. This exceeded the previous record by over 10 feet. More than 18,000 residents had been replaced or
Mm-hmm.
displaced.
Yep, crazy one. And you'll see another flood on my list, and they're very similar. This was a huge one, and this is one that we remember. The flood of '93 makes my number 3, and we'll get into that. I know you're circling back. 2008 was crazy. Like I said, I have grandparents and aunts and uncles in the Cedar Rapids area that were hit by derecho. They were also hit by
Cedar
the floods
Rapids
of
has
2008.
taken once in century storms in what, less than 17 years apart,
Yeah,
twice.
yeah. I mean, the damage is crazy, and you can still see there's still watermarks and dirt marks from where those floods were. They're fading. They've done a really good job of rehabbing that city, but man, so much damage.
Yeah, they're constantly building the flood walls. Every day when I'm taking the S curve to work, they're
Hmm.
working on the S curve or the flood walls to build up because they're going to be establishing a casino down there, right in
Yep.
flood capital, on the banks there of the Cedar River. But yeah, I'll never forget. I remember my backyard way up in north central Iowa on that same evening weekend when all these floods took place. We had a little creek was probably about maybe 3 feet typically wide, was the size of a full river, my parents'
Right.
backyard. And then obviously seeing what is the Cedar River crested 20 feet above its previous record.
Hmm.
And I mean, 10 feet above its previous record. Insane. My number 3, we're going here to Parkersburg, Iowa, Bryce.
Hmm.
During the hours of May 25th, 2008, a large and extremely powerful E5 tornado devastated the towns of Parkersburg and New Hartford, Iowa, claiming the lives of 9 people, and it caused $75 million in damage in its destructive path of 43 miles.
Hmm. Biggest tornado that I remember. I think Greenfield and some of these more recent ones have kind of taken that memory and distorted it some, but that was such a major event to the point where I grew up. I think at the time I was still living in Sioux Center, maybe Southern Iowa, Pella, but everybody was talking about Parkersburg and the damage that happened there. Obviously, Coach Ed Thomas in that area and his efforts to help rebuild the town made national coverage as well. got on the Sports Illustrated cover and got some ESPN coverage from how the town and the surrounding area came together. But that
Gives me
was a
goosebumps
devastating
talking
event.
about the football
Hmm.
team having the dress up in the locker room in the bus barn and leading out to that first game. And the
Hmm.
famous words from Ed Thomas: "The cement is dry," because they didn't know if they're
Hmm.
going to have time to get the stadium ready for the opening day. And he went out there the day of and said, "The cement is dry. We can play our
Hmm.
game." Chills leading that team out there in the classic historical program of Parkersburg.
Hmm. That was a good one. Well, I'm gonna go with the Great Flood of '93, Nate, and you mentioned
This is your
2008.
third, right?
This is my number
Okay.
three. Very similar to 2008. It at the time was the biggest flood. I think it replaced the flood of 1927. Um, Biggest flood in Mississippi River history, and that obviously means it affected multiple states. But Iowa had again billions of dollars of damage. I want to say 12 to 15, somewhere in there. Um, Again, thousands of people uprooted from their homes, and very similar lasting damage. But 2008 is the one that we remember, so that one kind of got lumped in to my 93 as well.
Where, what, do you know what town maybe took the worst of that damage by chance? Or they were just all screwed there on the Mississippi River?
Just because of the family ties there, I think the Cedar Rapids area was affected the most. Could be wrong on that. I wouldn't be surprised if the Quad Cities got hit pretty hard by it as well.
So the flood of 1993 just wasn't the Mississippi River then.
No, probably not.
Just 2 years before your little boy Nathan came into the world. So no, I didn't know anything
No.
about the 1993 flood. I'm sure my parents know quite a bit about it. Falls back with your number two.
I'm going to cheat a little bit because you texted about this segment and mentioned one of the famous incidents in Iowa history. The day the music died, Buddy Holly crashes into Clear Lake, February 3, 1959. The crash site's still there. I've actually never been, but this is a big one for anyone in northern Iowa.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say too. It's my number two. The day that music died, back in February 3rd, 1959, when Buddy Holly and some of his crew members were heading from the surf ballroom in Clear Lake to Minneapolis on a snowy late evening, around like 1 or 2 in the morning or something like that. They were
Mm-hmm.
taking off with a very amateur pilot who I was just listening to a podcast about the mistakes he made. He was
Mm-hmm.
not skilled enough to be driving in weather like that with the clearance of visibility. He was not no experience, so that flight should have never happened. And this is where we learn from these mistakes. But it's
Mm-hmm.
incredible how I do my research on this. I didn't know Buddy Holly was only 22 years of age too when he passed. He was a
I
young
didn't
cat,
either. And he
and
was making a ton of music.
this guy was going to be a big time
Mm-hmm.
artist.
Yeah, because his catalog of music is still very, very
Mhm.
popular, and they still say like they credit him with a lot of rock and roll um, moments of that time, and just kind of like being kind of an example for where music was going. So crazy that he had that much of a catalog and only 22
Especially,
years
he
old.
doesn't
And
say 22 years of age, but you've heard about the myths, right? As some if you go there on a cold February night, you can see the plane taking off. They say it's one of the most haunted places in Iowa. The crash
hmm
site of Buddy Holly. I have not seen a plane taking off. I don't know how far it is from I-35. It's got to be somewhat close. But no,
yeah,
yeah,
not too far.
I'm always telling people this. I'm like, yeah, you didn't know that? And I'm like, holy shit, that's where he freaking died. I'm like, yeah, it's up
Hmm.
in Clear Lake, Iowa. Bryce, my number one, the cap off this list is the Villisca Axe murders in
Oh,
1912. As 6 members of the Moore family and 2 guests were found murdered in their home with multiple axe wounds to the bodies, and very, it's hard to explain this.
it is because it wasn't a cold case. I don't think it ever went like completely like dead end cold file, but it went through court and they were having trouble figuring out who might have been
They had
the
two
culprit
prime
here.
suspects. I think they
Yeah.
took to court. This never found them guilty, but
Hmm.
people still aren't sure if those were the actual people or they have theories of someone else. But one of the, to me, as a entrepreneur, not entrepreneur, a fan of weather and haunting sites, this Velisca Axe one really staples me and I love telling outsiders about the Villisca axe murder houses.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's one of the sites that I'm hesitant to go, but I want to see it because it is
Uh-huh.
a lot of history.
I'm scared about
It's
that
a
shit
crazy.
get attached to me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
It's my God. If I go and if you guys could just stay here side of the house when I leave, that's cool, right? Which I'm sure I'd be
Yep.
fine, but I'm sure I would have a few sleepless nights following that.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I'm gonna bring the vibes a little bit back up here and talk about one of Iowa's Nobel Peace Prize winners, Norman Borlaug from Cresco, Iowa. Um, Crazy, crazy story. This guy went through, I think, both World Wars. Um, had some scientific expression with glue and some different things that were utilized in World War II, but he's most known for his research on genetic modifications to crops that is rumored to have saved billions of people in third world countries. So in 1970, Norman Borlaug wins the Nobel Peace Prize. Presidential Medal of Freedom, not the same year, I don't think, but he's one of the very few people who has won all three major and prestigious awards for helping humanity. So that's, I think, one of the coolest stories and one of the coolest Iowans to ever be born here. And I wanted to cap off with a little positivity.
That is quite the individual achievement and effort that the cap off your list there. Yeah, it is good that we end on something positive here because our list was taking a dark
Yeah,
turn.
lots of flooding, lots of tornadoes. Yeah, yep. Shout out to Norman bringing the pod back up. We had, I think we've talked about Villisca before. My honorable mention was going to be Iowa State developing the computer, but I thought since we had talked about that in the Greatest Inventions episode, I'd leave that out. But Iowa has some things that we've done in the past that's pretty cool. So just a couple positive things as we wrap up the show.
That is a great list right there for I think both of us, and I think some people are going to love to have some input on some other events that I'm sure we missed. I put that list together in maybe 10, 15 minutes, but I feel
Yeah, as usual.
I'd run it back though, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to overthink these things. I want to think that comes right to my head. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. But the I thought about maybe putting more sporting events in it, but God,
Mm-hmm.
you get one sporting event, and you're like, oh well, this one's just as deserving. So I left all my sporting events out of it. That's another segment we could do: top 5 sporting
Yes.
events
Yep.
that ever take place in the state of Iowa. Right? You think of, I'm not going to get down that rabbit hole, but what a show, Bryce! What are we looking forward to the rest of the week?
There's a lot going on this week. We will be celebrating Darian's 27th birthday, as mentioned earlier in the show. Little happy hour tomorrow, but we're bringing mom and dad down for the Boone Trail Adventure, the
That's
old
right.
renovated railroad where you can now take a little buggy, tandem cart we will be doing through the scenic byway of Boone, Iowa. So we'll be doing some of that. We've got Bacon Fest coming up on Saturday, May 3rd. And yeah, all kinds of stuff. You got a birthday coming up here soon too.
Yep. Don't even know if I want to talk about it. The Dirty
Mm-hmm.
30. It's cool, but man, dude, I'm gonna miss the 20s. I feel it every
Mm-hmm.
time I golf, bro. The age of back pain is what I've been calling it, and I'm already feeling that every time I golf. My lower back hurts, and yeah, whatever. You coming up to that?
We are. Darian has
Okay.
a continuing education in the morning, which is non-negotiable. She has to maintain her credits so that she can continue to practice assisting as one of the pillars of the Waukee and Lush family dental community. But we will be up there in New Hampton for the Dirty 30. Don't you worry about it.
Yeah, we're gonna have the Great Pond Party. I'm almost thinking about going to New Hampton today. I might call the father-in-law just because that's where the storms are gonna be. And I ain't, dude.
Okay.
I can't take it anymore, man. If I miss another storm, I'm gonna freaking kill myself. But I'm going up to New Hampton. I think. Let me call him. Make sure he's not. He might be in the fields planting. But whether or not, I'm gonna be out there chasing somewhere, brother. And I'll have to keep you in the loop.
Love it. Yeah. We'll hopefully get to recap a cool storm next week, but
Yeah, I'll be
we will
checking
stay
on you
tuned.
throughout the day because storms will be going through you once they get through the
Mm-hmm.
Bryce Fortress. Let's see how the storms are doing and see what they're building towards our way.
Yeah, another fun show. Honestly, so much fun to like kind of get back to normal after a really fun episode with Logan Paulson. I thought that interview was a lot of fun, and it seems like people enjoyed it. But it's always fun to get back to a little bit more of a normal show.
Yeah, yeah. I think we might be having a few more. guests, maybe throughout the summer.
Yeah.
Uh, when it feels right, we'll bring them on. Right? We don't really
Hmm.
plan too much ahead of it, but if like, this makes sense, we'll bring that person on. So we've had some nailer guests, some awesome. I think our last two guests were Coach McCollum and then Logan.
Maya, Coach McCollum, and Logan. So it's a
Okay.
really star-studded guest. Some rumors of maybe some Rob Sand coming on. We haven't officially scheduled that one, but if there's anybody that gets recommended, we're willing to reach out and see if they'd like to come on the show.
All right, everyone. Good luck out there to the Storms. Please send in your content. We want to see what's happening in the state of Iowa.
Yep.
Stay safe out there. Don't do what I would do.
All right. See you, people.